Mystery surrounding a huge flock of birds that suddenly plunged to the ground in Mexico. It happened earlier this month.
Thousands of birds are seen falling from the sky. They're dropping dead. It happened in Mexico, and people around the world are having a hard time explaining this incident.
Mysterious video of hundreds of yellow-headed blackbirds appearing to fall from the sky's surface.
Hundreds of yellow-headed blackbirds have been recorded falling from the sky, some of them dying, in the northern Mexican city of Cuauhtémoc under inexplicable circumstances. What is happening to birds all around the world, and what is causing it? Stay with us until the end to find out everything about this latest strange event. A mystery downpour of thousands of dead birds darkened New Year's Eve in Arkansas in 2011. And similar accounts have come in this week from Louisiana, Sweden, and elsewhere. But the in-flight bird deaths aren't the result of some apocalyptic virus or sinister experiment. They happen all the time, according to biologists. The latest excitement appears to have been sparked primarily by media hype. There are at least 10 billion birds in North America, and there could be as much as 20 billion. And almost half die each year due to natural causes, according to naturalist Greg Butcher, head of bird conservation for the National Audubon Society in Washington, D.C. But what causes a large number of dead birds to fall from the sky? The Arkansas instance identifies two common perpetrators: loud noises and collisions. On New Year's Eve 2011, about 11:30 p.m, Arkansas wildlife authorities began receiving reports of birds falling from the sky in a square-mile region of Beebe. Up to 5,000 red-winged blackbirds, European starlings, common grackles, and brown-headed cowbirds are estimated to have died before midnight. Early testing by the National Wildlife Health Center in Madison, Wisconsin, revealed that the birds died as a result of blunt force trauma, correlating with preliminary findings by the Arkansas Livestock and Poultry Commission. They collided with cars, trees, buildings, and other stationary objects, said Arkansas Game and Fish Commission biologist Karen Rowe. Right before they began to fall, it appears that really loud boom from professional-grade fireworks, 10 to 12 of them a few seconds apart, were reported in a general vicinity of a roost of the birds, flushing them out, Rowe said. However, recent security camera footage from Mexico shows a flock of migratory birds descending on dwellings like a cloud of black smoke. The majority of the birds are able to fly away, but the following film shows carcasses of the unique black and yellow birds littered across city streets. According to local accounts, the incident occurred on the morning of February the 7th. The birds breed further north in the United States and Canada and migrate south for the winter in Mexico. According to the local newspaper El Heraldo de Chihuahua, which broke the story first, a veterinarian stated that the incidents could be attributed to high levels of pollution caused by the use of wood-burning heaters, agrochemicals, and the area's chilly weather. Another theory suggested that the birds were electrocuted while perched on electrical lines. It was speculated on social media that it was triggered by 5G technology. Dr. Richard Broughton, an ecologist at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, claimed that while he couldn't spot a raptor in the video, he was 99% certain it was caused by a predatory bird. A predator may have caused the birds to swirl tightly and crash into the buildings or the foreground, forcing lower birds to crash into the buildings or the ground. This looks like a raptor, like a peregrine or hawk has been chasing a flock, like they do with the murmurating starlings, and they have crashed as the flock was forced low, he said. You can see that they act like a wave at the beginning, as if they are being flushed from above. Manchester Metropolitan University's Dr. Alexandra Lees, a senior lecturer in conservation biology, agreed. For my part, and from one video and no toxicology, I'd still say the most probable cause is the flock murmurating to avoid a predatory raptor and hitting the ground, he said. There always seems to be a knee-jerk response to blame environmental pollutants, but collisions with infrastructure are very common. In a tightly packed flock, the birds are following the movements of the bird in front, rather than actually interpreting their wider surroundings. So it isn't unexpected that such events happen occasionally. Some officials believe it is weather-related, such as lightning or high-altitude hail. But what if it is something worse? Like the all-new bird flu or some terrible man-made environmental disaster? What if this is the start of the end of the world? Here are a few well-known Bible references to birds in regard to the end of the world. Ezekiel 38:20 says, "The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground." Revelation 19:21 states the following, "But the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who had performed the miraculous signs on his behalf. With these signs he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. The rest of them were killed with the sword that came out of the mouth of the rider on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves on their flesh." So far, we have the 100,000 dead fish, 3,000 dead birds, and the earth trembling in Indiana of all places. Should we be worried? Perhaps. In other bird-related research, the biodiversity catastrophe has reached our backyards. 2.9 billion breeding adult birds have been lost from the United States and Canada in less than a single human lifetime, across all ecosystems and including familiar birds. The population of the dark-eyed junco has declined by 175 million individuals. The white-throated sparrow has lost 93 million individuals. Find out how you can help bring the birds back. To put it another way, since 1970, we've lost more than a fourth of our bird life. Researchers from 7 institutions, including the American Bird Conservancy, published their findings in Science, the world's leading scientific journal. Birds are signaling a bigger natural world problem, which is mirrored by global losses of insects, amphibians, and other animals. Even common bird species extinctions reflect a shift in our ecosystem's ability to support basic bird life. 90% of the roughly 3 billion birds perished belong to only 12 bird families, which included sparrows, warblers, finches, and swallows. These popular and widespread species have an impact on ecosystems. If they're in problem, the entire web of life, including us, is in jeopardy. This is the first study to account for net population trends in 529 breeding bird species across the United States and Canada. The researchers examined birds in groups, allowing them to discover reductions among species that use similar habitats. The study included data from 48 years of independent sources, including the North American Breeding Bird Survey and the Christmas Bird Count. A detailed review of 11 years of data from 143 NEXRAD radar stations revealed a comparable significant decrease in migration magnitude. A figure like 2.9 billion is difficult to comprehend. It can be useful to think of it as a balance sheet. Every year, many birds give birth while others die. However, many more birds have died than have survived since 1970. Resulting in 2.9 billion fewer breeding birds today. Hundreds of millions of birds have also gone extinct across Europe. One thing that Europe has in abundance is birds. A tourist or resident might notice them roosting and swarming everywhere, from cafes to farmland to chimneys. However, scientists have discovered a worrisome number about Europe's bird population. Despite their seeming vast number, the continent's general population has been steadily falling for over 40 years, and the figures outlining this reduction are not insignificant. Over the last 4 decades, bird populations have declined by an astounding 620 million individual birds, with no one noticing. When faced with the overwhelming magnitude of the loss, the seeming subtlety of the decrease becomes even more troubling. For example, the population of sparrows has plummeted by half, while the population of common starlings has decreased by an astounding 60%. The most noticeable detrimental alterations appear to have occurred predominantly in the birds that live in farmlands and grasslands. However, the reduction has occurred throughout the continent and is seen even in cities. Aniston Ava, interim head of conservation at BirdLife Europe, described what is behind the steady population decline, adding that common birds are becoming less common as the habitats on which they rely are being wiped away by humans. Nature has been wiped out in our farmlands, seas, and cities. Governments throughout Europe must create legally binding aims for ecological restoration or face dire repercussions, including extinction of our own species. Without large-scale laws and adjustments to safeguard the many bird species, this amazing reduction will only continue, and soon even humans will feel the impact of their absence. Birds are an important part of practically every ecosystem, and their symbiotic relationship with humans has existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It appears that they are beginning to feel the weight of the huge impact that people have had on Earth, culminating in a complicated and multifactorial trigger that has resulted in the extinction of hundreds of millions of birds. Between pollution, disease transmission, habitat degradation, and the accompanying insect reduction resulting in a reduced food source, the threat to the bird population has been significant and will very probably continue in a large scale unless action is taken to ameliorate some of these risks. Although the most significant declines are now being observed in the more common species, experts warn that this is a signal of looming decreases in biodiversity, which is a critical component of any healthy ecosystem. Researchers have started advocating for legislation and corrective action with the utmost urgency, despite the fact that this may not appear to be a pressing problem. The fact that so many birds are going extinct is a clear red flag in the planet and climate disaster that we are currently facing. What are your thoughts on these new findings? Tell us in the comments section.